James Marsden, you play James Marsden on Jury Duty. Was this role the easiest and the hardest, logistically at least, you've ever played?
Normally, I would say it's more difficult to play a character that's close to who you are as a human, as a person. But I actually, the version of James Marsden I play in this show is quite different than than really who I am day to day. So it was, I was able to sort of put on an imaginary costume, if you will, and be somebody else. It was definitely the more self-involved, Hollywood entitled celebrity version of myself. So in that regard, it was a lot more fun, was easier, I guess.
Mhm. So when they pitched it to you, what was it like? You're gonna play a version of yourself, or was there ever any discussion of you could play like I don't know, like somebody else that maybe hopefully Ronald would not recognize?
Well, I guess we needed to be ready for him to recognize me in case
Hmm.
that he could. I mean, I think that's probably why they may have selected this level of celebrity. Yeah, I am kind of known for people saying, "I know you from something."
But you can also easily deny, like, oh, I get that a lot.
Oh, right, true. Yeah. No, I think it was by design from the get-go that it needed to be someone who was recognizable, and had done a fair bit of work. But also it might be somebody that it's not like Brad Pitt walking into a room or anything like that. But I think by design it was supposed to be for the comedy a whichever character I was playing, whatever James Marsden I was playing, it was a very he was the source of a lot of things that went wrong. and and uh and at the core of that was someone who thought he was better than everyone else, or that he didn't deserve, or didn't it was that he didn't do this on a date. He was, what am I trying to say, someone who just felt like, I'm above this.
Right.
I don't do this stuff. I got directors meetings to do. I know you guys have important jobs too, but it was someone who felt like he's going to be a distraction. I got to get out of this. I don't have time for this. I got a movie to do. I got a TV show to do. I've got a press thing to hit. So there was an opportunity there to send up, the cliched entitled Hollywood celebrity, and I did that with Glee on this one. So yeah, that was always written in the scripts. People, there's a lot talked about with the improvisational element of the show. And there was, I mean, it was, 80-90% improv, but there were scripts. And in those scripts, there was no dialogue written, but it was all beats written by really talented comedic writers that's created sort of an architecture for the story. And the chair pants, that wasn't something that the character of Todd decided to improv when he showed up that day. There was a structure, and there were things written in the scripts. It's one of the reasons why I got excited, because I read those scripts and thought the journey that we were taking this poor guy on was pretty hilarious, and if we pulled it off, it could be, I think people could really enjoy it. But so I think by design, it was always meant to be a Hollywood kind of douchey guy as playing the part of the celebrity in the show.
Mhm. I do like that it was such a like a nuanced take on the self-absorbed actor, because you weren't like an outright dick, like screaming at people like
No,
you might,
no.
think of some certain actors, but yeah, you're like self-centered just enough and kind of attention starved, and
Right.
you're acting like you're self-effacing, but you're not really.
No, and then there were opportunities there to kind of weave in moments of like, oh, I feel bad for this guy.
Hmm.
That there were moments where he was embarrassed, and that his ego gets hit pretty hard, and he realized that he was doing something that was pretty unsavory and unlikable. And so I think those moments were almost the more challenging ones, because if I was successful in kind of weaving that into the flashy Hollywood guy, if I was able to weave in the moments of like, not pathetic, but almost pitiful, I guess is the word, tones in there, that Ronald actually, he's such an empath. He felt bad for me, and because when I didn't get the role in Lone Pine, or I kind of blew up and had a big hissy fit. And he's a very caring human being, and so when I was looking at, I don't, like you said, I don't want this guy to just be just like over the top, putting everyone out. I think it's like this, you have to kind of ride into the whole thing with a little subtlety, where he's trying to be affable, and there's a kindness to him. He can joke around with everybody, and he's like, look how likable I am, look how friendly and gregarious I can be. And then here's a little
It's always
nugget.
something. It's like when he's like
Yeah,
showing
here's a little nugget of like, I only want to talk about
like
myself.
don't get too comfortable with him.
Right.
How did you find that balance of, satirizing, like that, the narcissistic actor, but also being enough of yourself, the real James Marsden, where you could befriend Ronald because you guys actually did become friends. But then
Right.
I know you guys had to pull back with the cake incident because he was really disappointed that you
Well,
forgave.
honestly, right. Well, honestly, Ronald was my rudder with all of that. He sort of steered the tones of all of it, and I couldn't be too much of a pompous ass all the time, because Ronald would start to drift away from me, and I had to keep him close, so that we could push certain beats and line things up. So really, it was sort of just having a real strong level of adaptability and measuring his responses, and then sort of putting that through the processor, and then figuring out how to pivot if you needed to. So there was always, like, it was trying to strike the perfect recipe of finding the moments that the audience is going to laugh at, at the buffoon James Marsden, right? But also finding moments to actually really connect with Ronald on a human level. And I think that was important too, because then it made him realize, oh, this guy's down at the core of it all, he's a really good person, but he's been so jaded by Hollywood and people who are people following him around everywhere. He's the product of his success, I guess. And that's kind of my view of how Ronald looked at me, I guess. So yeah, it was you kind of had to balance the whole thing out with moments where we were really connecting on it didn't matter that I was a celebrity. We were connecting as friends on a human level. And and I think those moments were also moments where I felt the worst, because it did feel somewhat manipulative. But at the end of the day, we all genuinely fell in love with him. We really did. I mean, he stepped in, and none of us knew what to expect. And his reactions and his attitude and his kindness and pure-heartedness kind of shone through the whole thing. And we just genuinely were like, this guy's perfect for this, because not only is he kind of laughing at some of the absurdity stuff, he's not sweating all of it. Like he puts his arm around people that were supposed to freak him out. Like Todd was supposed to test his patience, and Ronald
He showed him a Bug's Life
spree, right, and like gave him a makeover. I mean, his humanity and just his goodness was the kind of, I don't know, it was the reason why I think the show worked as well as it did, because we could be silly and we could be absurd. It was really important to me from the beginning that I told the producers, and this was an ongoing conversation, just so that we stayed true. That was like our North Star, that I didn't want to do a prank show. I don't think it's fair. It's an it's an uneven playing field, to have somebody in the dark, especially for almost 3 weeks of their life. So I'm not going to ever be able to do anything that's going to humiliate him or make him feel bad or have him be the butt of the joke. I'll be an ass and dance around like an idiot. And he can react how he wants, but I'm never going to turn the screws to him directly. And that was really important to me. And so by the end of it, after we all fell in love with who this guy was, I raced up to him and gave him the biggest hug. And, I know he was still processing the whole thing, but it was important to me that he knew that it wasn't all fake.
Yeah, the relationships were real.
The relationships were real. And I think that was my gut, was that he needed to know that. And I was right. And we all were right. We all felt the same way, that like, I can't just like, okay, show's over, see you later.
Mm-hmm.
let's help
Yeah.
him process this over the next however many weeks, months, years. And also he's just a good guy I want to hang out with.
Yeah,
So
like I'm sure you guys have heard this a million times, but you totally hit the jackpot with the casting of
yeah,
Ronald. And then I know like he was also hitting story beats ahead of you guys.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
the bonding with Todd, and then he was just doing stuff you didn't expect. Like he went home and watched Sonic, and then he brought in the DVD of Sex Drive for you to sign.
Which no one, I mean, again, like you just have to kind of be in the zone and ready to flow. Because you just don't know what he's going to say or do, or what's going to be important to him, or what's going to make him upset, or what's going to make him laugh. And you just kind of had to, and so that element of the whole experience was the most exciting part of why I wanted to do it, and also the most terrifying,
Right.
because
Yeah. Like
it was that, that there was a certain percentage of like,
it's
who knows
unpredictable. You
what,
don't know. Yeah, you don't know what he's
complete
gonna do.
unpredictability. Yeah, yeah. And it could have gone really bad. It could have gone. I always thought too. Here was the other thing that kept weighing on my mind. It always felt like a seesaw of like, all right, it's either going to be really funny, like the scripts are, and but maybe potentially a little bit mean, or we are really going to create a hero's journey for this guy, which is how the producers presented it to me. It's not a prank show. We're creating a hero's journey for someone. But then the feeling was, if it's too sentimental or saccharine by the end of it, the comedy might get muted a little bit, right? It might suffer from that, not suffer, but like it just wouldn't be as funny. And somehow we threaded that needle, and I mean, I think it's largely due to the producers, the writers, this incredible cast of young improv actors, and I mean, just improv actors, the period, just who got what we were trying to do. And there was an unspoken understanding of where the jokes were, what was too far, what was pushing things too far, watching him. And I think you're right. The show wouldn't have worked if it wasn't someone as pure-hearted as Ronald.
Mm-hmm. Well, from your perspective, you the actors, it's like you're doing improv and everything is kind of loose, and you have to be adaptable and nimble and pivot to whatever Ronald's going to do while also trying to hit your story beats. But then the other side of it is you also have to be really disciplined, because you only get one take at this and you can't screw it up. You can't ask for a second take. So what was that like, that kind of pressure where you have to be quick on your feet, but you can't mess it up?
Yeah, I mean, I think there were a lot of we had backup plans in place, right? Because so yes, it is all one take, but there were beats that if it didn't feel right, the timing didn't feel right, or the mood didn't feel right, or something didn't line up to open the door for the joke. The director Jake Szymanski was like, all right, well, if this doesn't work, there were moments where certain actors were supposed to push certain things, and he said, we didn't get to that today, or it didn't feel right. Let's see, okay, tomorrow let's change stuff around a little bit, and we'll find another moment to bring that back in. But when you do have the door open to hit that beat, you better nail it. So it did require me. I mean, it's funny, the irony that I'm playing a character who is trying method acting for the first time in his life, to a really mediocre degree. It's ironic, because this process was the most method I've ever had to be in some way. And I know it's as a comedy, but you're in that room and you're like, you're
For
in a
hours, yeah.
windowless box with cameras that aren't cutting all day long. And there's a great amount of like creative latitude that comes with that, because you can mess around, and if it doesn't work, then you move on. I mean, I say that messing around, like things on my own or with the other cast, you can't mess around as much with Ronald. So but yeah, I was, you're kind of, that part of your brain is just constantly going like, one, how do I be the one who doesn't screw this whole thing up? Because that just made everyone on point. It kept everyone from breaking if something funny happened and everyone wanted to laugh. No one wanted to be the one that screws it up. And it also like was this sort of game of Jenga where like the more the further we got along with him, the higher the stakes became because you didn't want to blow it a day or two before we do the reveal.
You have no show.
No show, and Amazon spent however much money on 2 weeks of something that they can't use. So it was definitely as focused as I've ever been. It was definitely as prepared as I've ever been. I would go home and I would journal what happened that day, and I would look at tomorrow's schedule and the beats we were supposed to push in the next day of the next script or whatever. And I would write, you know, just 100, I don't know. I would just write ideas of like, okay, if he does this, I could say this. If he does this, I could say this.
Like when you have to act like you didn't leave a huge turd in his toilet.
Right. And there were moments like, oh my God, is this too far? I think the thing was like that barometer was constantly at work. It was what's going to be too far that's going to make him go, this is a joke. And what's going to be too far and what's going to be potentially unfair to him, right, along the way. Because even if we're super nice to him for 3 weeks, we're still lying to him for 3 weeks of his life. The reality we've created around him was false. It was just it was a complete scripted environment.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was interesting in the bonus episodes now that are up on Freevee. You guys talk about the cast commentary, how you guys were really trying to create a reality bank for him. Yes. So every time, so like what ends up in the episodes, even it's like 90 seconds of comedy or ridiculousness, but you guys are in there in court for like 6 hours and it's super boring.
So yes, but that when he started to get suspicious, we had to really lean in that other direction. Mm-hmm. If he started to get suspicious, once he went home, we would all reconvene and say, okay, tomorrow, sorry guys, but this is just going to be like, you're actually serving jury duty. And it's the wonderful Alan Barinholtz is going to sort of drone on, and he speaks the legalese, and all the other the actors playing the attorneys who were real attorneys. They're gonna, it's gonna be like court. And so that Ronald will think, well, this can't be a reality show because that was way too boring. And so then we had to make, like you said, deposits into the reality bank along the way, especially early on, because if we got too silly too quick, then he really would catch on. Mm-hmm. So we had to make it feel like, like you said, there were hours and hours and hours of footage of nothing going on. And that's what he saw. Mm-hmm. The audience doesn't see that. They see the like trimmed fat, like, they see it all.
You see the jokes. Yeah.
Right. You see the jokes and you cut all the other stuff out. It's the magic of Hollywood.
Yeah. Well, you got to play Caleb, your character in Lone Pine. You were method acting playing him. So how did you create that character of James Marsden playing Caleb in a shirt factory?
Yeah. The idea was, this James Marsden that I'm playing in the show has never gotten an opportunity to be taken so seriously as what Lone Pine would present him. It would present him an opportunity to really prove to his fans in the world that he's not just you're
not the guy from The Notebook. Yeah.
A guy or the guy who talks to like CGI rodents, like this is like my Oscar shot. And so there had to be a level of sort of pretentiousness to the whole project, right? Like we don't talk about who the director is. He makes a movie every 15 years. It's
about to be canceled.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. The tone of the movie is such, it's like Brokeback Mountain tone, or like, trying to think of another example.
It's like American Sniper, like very.
Yeah, it was like American Sniper or Stillwater, the movie with Matt Damon, where it's just like, you're having to, dive to the depths of all the dark corners of your soul for this role, and it's not something that this James Marsden's used to doing. So he thinks, he went and read the Method Acting for Dummies book, and decided that, and he couldn't even get through that book. So he's just like, oh, you just have to stay in character. That's all. And then it becomes evident that he didn't even read the script.
I
because
love that he's talking up how great the script is, and then when he's running lines with Ronald, he's like, I don't even know what this means.
okay, great. I'm so glad you caught that because to me, I went and I was like, I told the producers, I was like, I think it'd be really funny if he just waxes poetic about how brilliant this writing is and how it's just this is how it's someone who knows how to write how people actually speak and they're like how it subverts and how and all this and he didn't even really understand it. Like
Yeah,
he
and
was
then he's
literally
like, I don't like when Ronald asks like what happened to the daughter or whoever, he's like, I don't know. They never resolve it or something.
yeah, she's just gone. That's the
Yeah.
amazing thing. She's just, what happened to her? Did she get kidnapped or what? He's like, that's the great thing is that she's just lost. So it's like, oh my God, it was so much fun to me to play the subtlety of the comedy there and really be that guy who is really he's thinking he's putting his whole heart and soul into this thing, but he's still real, he's still a lazy, it's like the Hollywood celebrity comes out and it's like, oh, I don't want to read 120 pages of a script. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's just like this is gonna be my Oscar ticket. I'm just gonna
right,
skim it
right.
a little bit, read the sides. Yeah.
He doesn't
Um,
know how to do it at all. He's gonna focus on the accent.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, as
And
long as
then
my
sit on a
accent,
forklift for 10 minutes. So
yeah, be an everyman, be
yeah.
an every. Um,
Well, lastly, I know you improv the Chris Pine line. You lost a part to Lone Pine to Chris Pine. So have you heard from Chris Pine about this?
oh yeah, we've talked about it a few times. Yeah, I've run into him a few times, and he's like, I hear I make a little appearance in your show. And I'm like, you do. And he's like, I gotta check it, I gotta check this out. Because I mean, Chris Pine's Chris Pine now. When we were whatever, 10, 15 years ago.
You're mixed up with them. Yeah.
Oh, we were like going after the same roles and and it was like I was getting something that he wanted, or he would get something that I wanted. And so I just kind of tapped back into that reality that was a real thing.
I,
That's
I also love the winking to, anyone who follows like the Hollywood Chris's, and people have
right.
often said like you could be a Chris too. Yeah.
Oh, are they saying that? I know it's getting to play with that bit a little was fun as well, and because I've this character I play in the show is so used to hearing it went to Chris blah blah, it went to Chris Evans, it went to Chris Pratt, it went to Chris
Now you
Hemsworth.
guys just need to make Lone Pine for real. So
I'm dying to do that. Actually, two things I want to do. I'd love to actually turn this into like, hey, okay, let's cast Ronald as an actor and make this a show like The Office,
yeah.
and have a completely different setting. I don't know, because everyone was so good. Everyone just got the comedy, and everyone was so damn funny. But more than that, I actually want to make. I want to make Lone Pine, and I want Ronald to be in it playing a really important role. So I'm going to try to make this happen.
We're going to do it.
Want to see that film.
Forget season 2. We're just going to make Lone Pine. So
yeah. And then I would so badly want to go in and play Caleb like the James Marsden in the show would play him, which is probably pretty mediocre but really, really trying too hard.
Yes, we're gonna do this. We're gonna make this happen.
You can really heavy hand it with like sentimental music and and all this.
Oh yeah, you got to get the music cue in to make people cry and feel.
Yes, the music and histrionics galore, right? Just big screaming scenes and then shoot the stuff between takes as well, so you can see the shift. But yeah, no, I'd actually love to make that film, even if it's a short film. I'm gonna make Lone Pine.
Awesome. We're gonna do it. We're gonna make it happen, even if it takes 10 years. We're gonna do it. Well, James, it was great speaking with you. Thanks so much for your time, and congratulations on the show again.
Thank you, Joyce. I'm glad you liked it. I gotta check out the commentary. I haven't heard it.
I know, it's great.